What's going on, guys? Kpine here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be doing a complete breakdown of a team I already featured on this channel in order to prepare you for the upcoming Go Battle Week. Shadow Dragonair on the lead with Skarmory and Lanturn behind it. While this team is a toxic one, as it relies on the Shadow Dragonair getting switch advantage to get favorable alignment for your back 2 Pokemon, I think it's the perfect team for Go Battle Week, as the battles go fast so you can fit them all in, and it's a very good one at that. I managed to use the team to climb into the 2900s before the league shifted, where I then managed to hit Legend in the Great League Remix. And on top of that, despite this team being an alignment dependent one, it has a lot of flexibility if needed. So, in this video, I'll be showing you how to play out some of the more common leads and save swaps you'll see. With that said, this will be a little bit of a longer video, so I can try and cover everything. If there does end up being something I missed, please feel free to ask away in the comments, as I'll be happy to help. I'll also be linking the previous video I made on this team in the description box below. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Whiscash. And now this is one of those matchups where we are going to have to go down a Shieldon in order to get switch advantage, but it is very helpful since most Whiscash leads do have a Skarmory in the back. Now what I like to do is, even though we can survive Mud Bomb, I like to shield the first Mud Bomb, because like I said, we are going to have to show up a move regardless, but by shielding up that first Mud Bomb, that makes them go for a second Mud Bomb in order to do the most damage, because if you let the first Mud Bomb go, then they can go for a Scald knowing that they'll guarantee a shield regardless and get that potential attack drop. So by shielding the first Mud Bomb, it forces them to go for that second Mud Bomb, as it does do more damage. And now as we see here, the Skarmory is in the back, and we can align that onto the Lanturn, of which my opponent's going to go for a Brave Bird and dip, so we get to see what their third Pokemon is right afterwards. And it ends up being a Gligar, so we bring in our Skarmory and my opponent concedes. GG's. So that's a good example right there of how good this team is for getting that alignment that you want and then shutting down your opponent. Shadow Dragonite lead. You are just going to commit to the Dragon Breath down, as they will get KO'd in 13 Dragon Breaths every time. So you knock them out without them getting to a move, and you leave with a Body Slam store to get some chip damage. Of which my opponent brings in a Lickitung. I'm just going to let my Shadow Dragonair get licked down, as I have a fantastic answer for the Lickitung in my Skarmory. Lickitung here is going to go for a Body Slam. We are going to let that go, as it does almost nothing to the Skarmory. Now we're going to go for our Sky Attack right away. This will not KO, but we'll bring them down into the red and put them in a farm down later. And now my opponent swaps in a Lanturn. This could get a little tricky because my opponent does have a Spark lead. So this is going to come down to a little bit of bait dependent. Or what you can do is you can just go for straight Surfs. Make sure you're building up to the Thunderbolts first to try and get that shield. But in this case, my opponent makes a fantastic call. And even with that call, again, build up to the Thunderbolts, but go for the Surfs. Because here, I now force the shield with that Surf, can shield another Thunderbolt in return. And look at this, I will reach not just one more Surf to get that last shield from my opponent, but I will reach 2 Surfs. So a total of 4 Surfs reach compared to their, before they get to 3 Thunderbolts, even though they had a little bit of an energy advantage. And you see that those 2 Surfs landing plus a spark damage brings them into the red, a very manageable range for my Skarmory to deal with, to Steel Wing down before they can get to another move. So let's see here, able to Steel Wing down the Lickitung, and I would Steel Wing down the Lanturn, but I do reach a move, and my opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair into Shadow Dragonair. Just like with the Shadow Dragonite lead, you are going to commit to the Dragon Breath down. You are not going to throw a move, as if your opponent does, you can just shield, Dragon Breath down. You now have switch advantage and a move stored to throw out whatever they decide to come in with. Of which in this case is a Poliwrath for my opponent. So I get to throw this Body Slam, let my Dragonair go down, and now I can align the Poliwrath to my Lanturn, of which they have a Superior in the back. We meet it with our Skarmory, and GG's. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair into a Sirfetch'd. So this is one of those matchups where just an easy one shield farm down if they decide to stay in. But if they decide to swap out, which they do, it will then be focused on the safe swap, of which in this case is a Cresselia. So since I have all this energy stored on my Shadow Dragonair already, I'm just going to swap in my Skarmory immediately to shut down that Cresselia. If it was a situation where my opponent saw the lead, safe swapped into the Cresselia right away, I'm actually going to stay in with my Shadow Dragonair, bank a Body Slam, and then swap into my Skarmory to shut down the Cresselia, as that extra energy on the Shadow Dragonair will come in handy. And any energy advantage lead like that my opponent gets is negated by the fact that it is a Skarmory that I'm bringing into it. So down goes the Cresselia, in comes a Mana Buzz, and from here, this game is over. I kind of just hard RPS my opponent here, where once I was able to guarantee that switch advantage from the lead, just by a one shield farm down or by them swapping out, I would be able to put my Skarm on the Cresselia and my Lantern on the Mandibuzz. My opponent is going to take out my Skarmory with the Aerial Ace there. I bring in the Lantern, they swap into the Sirfetch'd. I'm going to fire off a Body Slam, which does take out the Sirfetch'd, and my opponent concedes the match. GG's. Next battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Clodsire. And now this is one where Shadow Dragonair does comfortably win the 2 shields in, so you will play out the 2 shield in this matchup in order to force switch advantage. However, my opponent makes a little bit of a mistake here. They do not build up to an Earthquake. If they build up to an Earthquake, then you will have to respect it with a shield, and like I said, play out the 2 shields. But if they only build up to a Sludge Bomb or a Stone Edge, you will be able to tank that and be able to survive enough to get switch advantage anyways, where fast move pressure is not a problem. If you tank an Earthquake, fast move pressure will be a problem. If you tank a Sludge Bomb or a Stone Edge, it won't. So by my opponent not building up to that Earthquake, I'm able to let it go. But again, as I've said twice now, they build up to that Earthquake, you will shield it and play out the 2 shield scenario. We take out the Skeledirge with our Lantern. Back in comes the Clodsire, of which you're able to reach a Surf on, brings it down into the red. Now we're going to load up and swap to catch the Earthquake onto the Skarmory. And which at that point, my opponent realizes they don't have a win condition left and concede. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair into Poliwrath. So this is going to be for a Poliwrath lead or a Shadow Poliwrath lead. Throw after 13 Dragon Breaths, of which if you're not sure what 13 Dragon Breaths is, once your Body Slam meter is full, just throw one more for that 13th, and that will be on good timing. And it's very, very important you throw on good timing here, because in the regular Poliwrath matchup, if you throw on good timing and your opponent shields, then you throw the second Body Slam right there where they shield it. If they end up no shielding it, that Body Slam will KO. And you get switch advantage. It will just barely KO. So that extra Dragon Breath you get by throwing on good timing is very, very important. Also, if it's a Shadow Poliwrath, it's even more important you throw after 13 Dragon Breaths on good timing. Because if you throw on bad timing and let them sneak a counter, you will not reach a second Body Slam. So they can just counter down all the way. So by throwing on good timing, it allows you to reach that second Body Slam, which is very, very important. Now we have our Skarmory on the Lickitung, of which again is where we want to put it to shut down my opponent. And in the back, they have a Clodsire. So this could get a little tricky since my Lantern is chipped at this point. But we are going to go for the Sky Attack here just to save some energy. And we don't want to debuff ourselves a little too much, so they could potentially Mudshot down. So instead, we are going to swap and catch the Stone Edge on our Lantern. And at this point, this game is over, because we could just save the shield for our Skarmory to then reach a Brave Bird to close it. But my opponent goes for another Stone Edge, hoping that will be enough to take out my Lantern, plus a couple Mudshots, but it's not. We reach a Surf. They do get the Mudshot down, but again, we still have that shield to then Steel Wing down the Clodsire. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Lickitung, excuse me. And this one is going to be on the safe swap here. So my opponent immediately swaps into a Poliwrath. And when they immediately swap into a Poliwrath, you can just throw your Body Slam right away. Due to that 1 turn desync it takes to switch, you're throwing that Body Slam right away will be on good timing. And even though we have a good answer for the Poliwrath in Lantern, you don't know, they could potentially be running Dynamic Punch. So we do go for that Body Slam, of which if they let the Body Slam go, you swap into your Lantern and just Spark all the way down. If they shield that Body Slam, then you now have a shield advantage, and your Lantern can still come in to absolutely shut down the Poliwrath. Now back in comes the Lickitung. We will get this Thunderbolt off for chip damage, and here we would commit to another Thunderbolt, but our opponent throws before we get there. So we're fine, we can let that go. Power Whip takes us out, and now here, I'm just gonna bring in my Skarmory to shut down that Lickitung, and in the back, they have a Jellicent. So I'm core broken by this Jellicent, but here my opponent just goes for the Surf, and in doing so, that allows me to no shield and then get to 2 Aqua Tails. If they were gonna go for the Shadow Ball, then I would have had to respect it, so I can get some Dragon Breath damage off on the Jellicent, but by them just going for the Surf, we're able to put it into a very manageable range for our Skarmory. And here I still have 2 shields left, and I'll use them both on the moves from the Jellicent, as these neutral Surfs will do more than the resisted Body Slams from the Lickitung. So that's going to be the best use for our shields, and at this point, the full health Skarmory will be able to take care of the Lickitung, and my opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair into Deoxys. Now this one could be played out many different ways. If they go for the Psycho Boost and dip, which they do here, you will shield it. If they build up to 2 Psycho Boosts, obviously you will throw your Body Slam after good timing, but you will shield the first Psycho Boost and then let the second one go, as you will be able to get switch advantage either way. But in this matchup, my opponent goes for the Psycho Boost and dip strategy. So I'm going to stay in and throw and fire off a Body Slam. Now this team is very, very common. It's a Deoxys lead, a Vigoroth, or a Lickitung, and then a Guzzlord in the back. And the Vig or Licky safe swap is meant to bait out your Skarmory, but you need that Skarmory for the Guzzlord. So what you do is you fire off that Body Slam's worth of chip. If it's a Vigoroth, you can then immediately swap into your Lantern. If it's a Lickitung, you fire off that Body Slam and stay in until they get to a Body Slam. Once they get to a Body Slam, you will then swap into your Lantern to catch that Body Slam. And by doing so, this allows your Lantern to take care of the Lickitung, your Dragonair to take care of DD, and then your Skarmory to take care of the Guzzlord. So in comes our Skarmory. We did not fall for that Lickitung / Vigoroth safe swap to bait out our Skarmory, and we save the Skarm for the Guzzlord. They do unfortunately get a defense drop, and since my opponent has 2 shields, I'm not going to throw anything. I'm just going to commit to fast move pressure, of which we're stealing down the Guzzlord and the Deoxys. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Azumarill. We are going to immediately safe swap into our Skarmory here, if they stay in with the Azumarill. So the reason why we safe swap into our Skarmory here is most Azu leads do not have a good response to Skarmory, so they end up staying in. My opponent in this matchup does, however, so we're going to show the worst case scenario in this matchup where they counter swap a Registeel. We're going to be able to get both Brave Birds off worth a chip, and then our Shadow Dragonair will come in to deal with the Registeel. But in majority of scenarios, they don't have a good response to a Skarmory safe swap. So if they stay in, you are going to throw your Sky Attack right away. That will be on good timing. If they build up to a Hydro Pump, which is 7 bubbles, you will shield the Hydro Pump that they throw, as they're most likely not going to bait, and then you'll just play out that matchup. If they do not build up to a Hydro Pump, it's only an Ice Beam or a Play Rough, and you can no shield that comfortably quite fine. And now in this matchup, I have my Lantern against their Gligar. And I know that I need to keep my Lantern healthy to deal with the Azumarill, so I am going to shield up both moves that my opponent throws, preserve HP. Now I'm going to build up some back-to-back Surfs. I'll be able to force both shields from my opponent with this Surf. And by keeping my Lantern alive, that allows it to deal with the Azu. So here, I'm now going to swap into my Dragonair, hopefully trying to catch a move. And my opponent reads the swap just in time, and they're able to catch my move instead. But this is fine, right? Because now my Lantern is alive at basically full health. So from here, I can just start chipping the Azu, get the Azu in a range where we can then spark it down. My opponent goes for an undercharge so they can get more energy. That's fine because, again, we are going to be able to survive a move from the Azu. We will be able to get the spark down and leave with a Surf in play for the Gligar. So in a situation like that, it's recognizing that, hey, my Lantern's my win condition. I need to keep it alive so it can deal with this Gligar because my Shadow Dragonair at this point is basically dead weight, using it as the pivot to bring back out the Azu to then get more energy on the Lantern to close it out. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair against a Charjabug. This is going to be a Charjabug lead or Charjabug safe swap. Charjabug safe swap is definitely a lot easier because you have one more Dragon Breath's worth of damage on it. But in this case, we're going to be showcasing the Charjabug lead, where you can tank one X-Scissor, throw the Body Slam on good timing 1 turn before their Volt Switch ends. And my opponent just decides to let it go, and you can see there that they let it go, they will get KO'd. If they were to survive that, they'll be able to get off their next X-Scissor, but the Dragon Breaths plus the Body Slams do just enough to KO the Charjabug. And interesting enough, you can tank that X-Scissor, and if your opponent decides to shield your Body Slam that you throw right there, then you can just shield their X-Scissor and Dragon Breath all the way down before they get to their next X-Scissor, which means you both give up 1 shield in that matchup, but you leave with almost 2 entire moves stored and switch advantage. So my opponent in this case made the better play by letting that Body Slam go, because if they did shield that, I would be able to get switch advantage and leave with almost 2 moves, of which, you know, you're kind of hoping is what happens. But either way, we do get what we want here. We do get our switch advantage. So they have a Lantern in the back, so we align our Lantern to it. Lantern gets low enough where they won't reach a move against a Skarmory. And my opponent concedes because all they have left is that Dragonair. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair into a Bastiodon. And Shadow Dragonair, interestingly enough, wins the 1-shield scenario against a Bastiodon. Shows how absolutely busted this Pokemon is. So we are going to throw an Aqua Tail against the Bastiodon after 14 Dragon Breaths, which is good timing, maximizing our energy and preventing a sneak. So we will shield up the move here, and then we're going to load up, throw in good timing to 2 Aqua Tails. If they shield this, we will throw 2 more Dragon Breaths and then another Aqua Tail. And in which case, against Bastiodon leads, if your opponent gives up both shields to get switch advantage, your Skarmory is just going to sweep because of what the backlines behind Bastiodons tend to be. But in this situation, your opponent swaps out into a Wigglytuff, which is also a common team this season. Bastiodon, Wigglytuff, Victory Bell. You will put your Lantern on the Wigglytuff, so you save your Skarmory for the Victory Bell. GG's to my opponent. Next battle. This one's going to be a Sableye safe swap. They safe swap a Sableye, you are going to throw your Aqua Tail right away. Again, due to the 1 turn it takes to switch, throwing your Aqua Tail right away will be on good timing, of which in that case, you can then, if they let it go, you can swap into your Lantern and spark all the way down. If they shield it, you will still swap into your Lantern and then go for a Thunderbolt to take them out. Here I stopped tapping to bring my Lantern as low as possible to give the Pokemon that they come in with as little farm as possible. Of which in this case, it ends up being that Lantern, which we land that Thunderbolt. And now here I'm going to wait out my clock, and bring back in my Dragonair. If they're staying in and they build up to the Thunderbolt to throw, I will shield it, because again, we are a Shadow Dragonair, we are pretty glassy, so it will hurt. And in the back they have a Skeledirge, so it looks like that my Shadow Dragonair is going to have to put in a lot of work here, as my Skarmory has nowhere to go. So we just need to make sure we're throwing on good timing after 4 Dragon Breaths against a 5-turn move like Incinerate. And from here, I'm hoping that I can reach this last Aqua Tail. I got a little worried that Incinerate would KO, so instead I swap to defer the damage to my Skarmory, and in which case I will be able to reach a move to close out this game. But here I can let this go. If my opponent even goes for the Shadow Ball, I'm in a good position, because the Skarmory gets KO'd and I will be able to Dragon Breath down the Skeledirge in time and then leave with a move to take care of the Lantern. But my opponent goes for the Disarming Voice, in which case we're able to survive, Steel Wing down, and then take care of the Lantern. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Dragonair lead against Shadow Alolan Sandslash. We are going to stay in, throw 10 Dragon Breaths, swap into our Skarmory to try and catch an Ice Punch, but my opponent stays in, ends up throwing their energy anyways, so it works out for us. Ice Punch does land, and here, since my opponent is staying in, I will shield this second Ice Punch. I want to keep my Skarmory somewhat healthy. And now they bring in a Pelipper. So I'm going to load up on energy, throw this Sky Attack right here, baiting the Brave Bird, of which my opponent does respect, of which is very nice for us, because here we're not in Weather Ball range. We can tank this Weather Ball, make it to a Brave Bird to take out this Pelipper or force their final shield, of which we force their final shield, and that's amazing, because now I can just put my Lantern onto this Pelipper and spark it all the way down. So despite that Alolan Sandslash lead, we are going to leave with a ton of energy on our Lantern. So if they bring in the A-Slash here, we can just take it out with all this loaded energy we have. But here my opponent hard swaps into Cresselia, so I can store all that energy for the A-Slash and then come in with my Dragonair. I will let this go as they do KO my Dragonair, because at this point my Dragonair has a bad matchup as to whether it's against the A-Slash or the Cresselia. So my win condition is again this Lantern, as I'm going to go for Surf number 1 and then Surf number 2. I wasn't sure if the Thunderbolt would KO there, which looking at the HP of the Cresselia it would have, so a little bit of a misplay, but I decided to play a little bit safer by going for the double Surf to guarantee the KO instead. And now in this matchup, I'm just going to go for the Surf right away, not expecting my opponent to catch instantly, which they do not, as the Surf takes out the A-Slash and we spark down the Pelipper. GG's. Next battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into a Talonflame. So this one's going to be focused on the safe swap as well, of which is a Vigoroth safe swap. If your opponent doesn't throw a move, you are going to throw your Body Slam right away and then safe swap into your Lantern, because again, most Vigoroth safe swaps are trying to bait out a Skarmory, but you're reading that and saving your Skarmory for what they have in the back. If your opponent does throw a Body Slam, you will shield that Body Slam, throw one more Dragon Breath, and then your own Body Slam, of which in that case, whether they let it go or shield it, you'll then swap into your Lantern. So here my Lantern does take care of the Vigoroth, and you'll see in the back they do have that Serperior. So again, we did not fall for that Vigoroth safe swap trying to bait out our Skarmory. Doesn't matter, the Serperior can get as much of a farm down as they want and get all this energy, because we have the absolute wall in Skarmory to take care of the Serperior, of which my opponent, as soon as they see it come in, they concede the match. GG's. Next battle, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Lickitung. This is going to be a Lickitung lead scenario, of which it stays in. In order to get switch advantage, you will play out the 2-shield scenario. In other words, you'll have to give up 2 shields, they only give up 1, but you will leave with a move stored. So I'm going to overfarm just in case to try and go for a catch. First Body Slam lands, and now the second Body Slam I will throw right away, because we have identical pacing, and if they stay in, this Body Slam will KO, forcing that shield from my opponent. If they shield, then you just shield their body slam in return, and you'll be able to Dragon Breath down before they reach a third body slam, and again, leave with a move stored and get switch advantage. But in this case, my opponent makes a very nice catch onto Jellicent, but that gives us what we want. We get that switch advantage, we're able to put our Lantern onto the Jellicent, in which case we tank that Shadow Ball, fire off this Thunderbolt, which does get a shield from my opponent, surprisingly enough. And because that gets a shield from my opponent, I'm thinking that, hey, they're double weak to the Lantern in the back, so I can shield up their next Shadow Ball, Spark all the way down. The Lickitung comes in, I will fire off the Surf right away to force that final shield from my opponent if they want to get off their Body Slam, which they do. And now I'm not quite in Body Slam range yet, so I'll be able to survive this and fire off my next Surf. But instead, I decided to swap into my Skarmory and save my Lantern for later, because again, I'm reading that whatever they have in the back is weak to it, of which ends up being a Poliwrath, and they see my Skarmory and they concede. GG's. Next battle, Skarmory lead. This is a terrible lead for us, and I don't recommend playing it out how I do here. We start off by throwing after 13 Dragon Breaths, which is good timing. The reason why I don't recommend playing it out like I do here is because your opponent, if they want to, can give up one shield to your 2 and still take switch advantage. So my opponent makes it easy for me by swapping out and giving me that switch advantage, but if they stay in, which most do, you have to shield their first Sky Attack and then try and catch their second Sky Attack onto your own Skarmory. And the reason why I don't necessarily recommend playing it out that way is because in order to give you any chance to win, you have to catch that second Sky Attack on your own Skarmory. If you don't, your opponent tends to have a Whiscash in the back behind the Skarmory leads, of which will just go on sweeping you then. But, so that's why I don't recommend playing it out, because it relies on you catching that second Sky Attack. So instead, what I do recommend doing is swapping into your own Skarmory right away. And by doing that, what it does is it actually baits out that Whiscash in the back more often than not, which is very surprising considering you're a flying type. But again, you bait out the Whiscash more often than not, which frees it up for your Lantern. And when you do swap into your Skarmory, it allows you to have the chance to play for switch advantage. But if you're not able to get switch advantage, you instead will get a massive energy advantage on your Dragonair, so you could then fire off Aqua Tails against the Skarmory when it inevitably comes back in, as opposed to being on even energy from like a lead scenario to give you that little bit of an extra chance in the matchup. So in the back, they do have that Whiscash, of which we land that Sky Attack, survive just barely enough to get to the Brave Bird. That was very crucial that I went for the Sky Attack there first, because that allowed us to survive the Mud Shots to get to the Brave Bird as opposed to going for the Brave Bird first. GG's to my opponent. Whimsicott lead is quite the core breaker, so we are going to stay in and then go for a Body Slam after 13 Dragon Breaths for that good timing. And here, it is just a guessing game. It takes 7 Fairy Winds to get to a Moonblast, so you are free to fire off that first Body Slam. But after that, it's just a guessing game as to when you can catch the Moonblast onto your Skarmory. My opponent builds up to 100 energy, so they make it a pretty choreographed catch and easy for me. But again, opponents aren't always going to do that. And they could throw right away, or they could throw after 4 more Fairy Winds, so it's just a guessing game there. Now they do come in with a Lantern. They're able to farm our Skarmory all the way down, but not before we're able to get a shield with the Brave Bird. So now here, we can bring in our Lantern to shut down all this energy from their Talonflame, as we go for fly number 1 and fly number 2. And here, I'm going to fire off the Surf to deny their third fly, which does take out the Talonflame. Now I'm going to swap immediately into my Dragonair, because I have all this energy on the Dragonair. I would be able to reach another Body Slam against the Whimsicott before it reaches another Moonblast. So here I am able to land a Body Slam on the Whiscash. Will shield up the Mud Bomb since I do have 2 shields. And even though this is a Grass Knot, I need to keep my Shadow Dragonair healthy to deal with that Whiscash, as my Lantern won't really be able to with the Sparks. Now I'm not quite able to reach a get a farm down here, so I will fire off the body slam. If my opponent shields, my lantern will be able to spark down, but my opponent lets it go. I can't quite commit to fast moves here because my opponent reaches a mud bomb against my Shadow Dragonair. They will be able to reach one against my lantern, so I go for that body slam, in which case my opponent, I go for that body slam to get their shield to then be able to reach a surf with my own lantern, but my opponent goes for the farm down, takes all that Dragon Breath damage, so then I will be able to spark down after I barely survive that mud bomb and take that one. GG's to my opponent. This one is for an Altaria safe swap. You are just immediately going to swap into your Skarmory, throw this Sky Attack right away, and no shield what your opponent throws. So you're gonna comfortably you'll let this go as you'll comfortably survive it. And now here I'm gonna load up on energy, throw my next Sky Attack right away, because that is going to be pretty close to their next Sky Attack. If they shield that move, then you just shield their move, and then you can Steel Wing all the way down. But my opponent lets it go, which is the smart play, and instead choose to get energy on their Skeledirge, and in the back they have a Cresselia. So my lantern does not want to see this Cresselia, so we are going to stay in with my Dragonair for as long as possible. We are going to shield up this move, and we want to get as much Dragon Breath damage off as we can, as they do go for the Future Sight. So that's a fantastic shield on our part, as we're able to get the shield with the next Body Slam, as we outpace to this next Body Slam to then get their second shield. In which case, I'm going to overfarm and try and go for a Catch of the Future Sight, and we fail the Catch of the Future Sight. But that is okay, as Lantern, being very, very bulky, can tank 2 Grass Knots. But just barely. So first Grass Knot lands, second Grass Knot lands in the red, and here we will go for the Spark Down, so we can leave with the move for the Skeledirge, but my opponent hard swaps back into the Skeledirge. We land that Surf to take it out, and now we just get the Spark Down of the Cresselia either way. GG's to my opponent. And now getting into the final battle of the video, we lead Shadow Dragonair into Mantine. This is a little bit of a tricky matchup since they do have access to Ice Beam, but per usual, we will throw our Body Slam after 13 Dragon Breaths. And again, it's crucial we're throwing on good timing here, because as you'll see, after we shield up, our opponent does bait with an Aerial Ace, we will be able to get to our next Body Slam on the CMP tied to their Ice Beam. If we throw on alignment, they will outpace us, so throwing on good timing is crucial. We do get the first shield from our opponent as they want to get this Ice Beam off, and that forces the second shield from us, in which case we could then just Dragon Breath down and get alignment. But in comes a Surf Fetch. We're not quite able to get to a move in time, so we will swap and catch the Night Slash onto our Skarmory, in which case we will then Steel Wing all the way down, because we know that we can survive another Night Slash. Night Slash lands, we get the Steel Wing down. If they bring back in the Mantine, we will throw a Sky Attack after 5 Steel Wings, knowing that that would be on CMP tied to their Aerial Ace. But even better, the 5th Steel Wing does KO, of which in the back that they have a Poliwrath, so we're able to force the shield with the Sky Attack. We don't reach a second one, but that is okay, because at this point this match is over since we do have our Lantern for the Poliwrath. Go for a little bit of a cheeky play here, coming in, getting a Body Slam's worth of chip damage off to seal the victory, but it's not needed as Lantern will take the win either way. GG's to my opponent. I hope you all enjoyed this longer video and in-depth team breakdown. Again, I tried to throw in the most common leads and safe swaps you'll see, so you can have an idea of how to play them. If I missed anything, ask away in the comments and I'll get to it as quick as I can, and best of luck with the upcoming Go Battle Week. I know it will be a lot of battles to get through, so hopefully this video and team will help with that. I also know these type of events can get pretty taxing, so be sure to prioritize your health and daily life first, as that is the most important. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.